So what do you do if you're depressed? How do you fix it? I'm going to describe depression first, because I think it's good when you're looking at a big problem like depression to describe it, right? So depression is a sense that there's no purpose to your life. Depression is a sense that you're in this dark tunnel and you're not understood, and you feel that the problems that you're facing in the world are too much to overcome. Or maybe your body's ravaged with illness, or you have friends and family who've deserted you, or you have conflicts with them. Or you feel like you're a failure in life, or you feel like life has no meaning. Or you're jealous of religious people, or you hate atheists. I mean, depression can have so many different faces, right? And there's definitely a component of depression that is possibly related to diet and lifestyle, right? I mean, you look at the evolution of the modern pharmaceutical company, and it really, comes down to this man who controlled the oil industry in America, and they broke up big oil into many smaller factions, so he didn't have such a monopoly. But then he pushed like pharmaceutical drugs that a lot of it came from the petrochemical industry or from technology therein. And then when Freud was doing his work, he said within 50 years, we'll be able to give a pill for every psychological issue. And then R.D. Laing came along. He was a British psychiatrist, and he said there was a woman and she was just rocking back and forth in an insane asylum. And he was of a different disposition. He didn't think you could reduce human beings to like chemical solutions to their brain chemistry, right? He thought that was a dangerous tangent that psychiatry was taking. And so he just rocked up next to this rocking lady. He would wake up, rock all day, rock herself to sleep, rock herself through she was just catatonic. All she did was rock back and forth, back and forth. So he came and sat next to her and did the same thing. And after 3 days, she turned to him and said, "Who are you?" He started to connect with where she was. So there are all these approaches to depression as well. There's the description of what it is, and then there's the approaches. But I think the way you handle depression, because I've handled some depression recently and I'm on the other side of it, and I had to come to crisis. Like the depression was the north face of the Eiger. It was like you have to get over that to get to the summit of the light sky that you're, where you can stand on the summit and look at the light sky and look down on the shadows of the mountain that you've come up through and see it differently. And when you're in the throes of depression, it may be an expensive therapist that sits there and you think, well, you're getting paid to feed off my pain. That would be the ego's view of it. And you could become cynical. Or you may have family that have demonstrated to you that anger is justified and that aggression is normal. And I read once that depression is anger put upon yourself, because you're saying, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of happiness. And the world can give you a million stories to justify your victimhood in the context of that. And anyone who's compassionate, like if you're addicted to smoking, John Lennon said, don't go and tell them it's a bad thing to smoke. Go and have a cigarette with them, right? But then show them that you don't have to be addicted, right? I used to smoke marijuana and tobacco. I don't anymore, because I came to this awareness that I don't want to be dependent for my happiness on an external stimulus. So I think how you handle depression is you have to see what thought system's informing it. You know, you have to see that the world, you know, to fit into a very sick world is hardly a sign of psychological intelligence or psychological wisdom. Like, we have to accept that the world is insane for the most part. It's perfect in that it brought you to this crisis where you're questioning the values of this insane world with all its bullies and its nepotism and its ugliness and its attacking and defending and its exclusionary politics and its exclusionary friendships and its judgments and its narcissists and its manic bipolar people. And I'm not judging any of these people. I'm just saying navigating the labyrinth of a very toxic world. I think depression, be very gentle on yourself. It's a very natural response. It's a very natural response to an insane world to a certain degree. But how do you handle it? You say, well, there's a way of being and there's a way of seeing where I'm not a victim of that insanity in my mind, right? And that's where therapy comes in, whether you have a therapist or you do it yourself. You know, a good therapist is like transcending the fearful thoughts in their mind, right? So they've seen how the ego traps the mind under the weight of bitterness and fear and grievances and attack thoughts and defense thoughts. And a mature therapist, and I would say that they're rare, like there's a lot of, I think all people that go into therapy go into it for the right reasons. But I trained to be a therapist last year, and I was just, there was this sort of, there was a woman that I met next to a Buddhist monastery. She lived next to a Buddhist monastery in England. And I said, what do you think of the monks? And she said to me, well, you know, I couldn't do it, but they're generally nice. I don't have any issues with them. The problem I have with some of the monks that I kind of like can see through their bullshit kind of thing is that they overdo the piety. Like they have this mask of like, I'm so spiritual, you know? And often you find that with psychotherapists, I'm so sane, you know, I don't judge anyone. I'm really enlightened in that I, you know, support the underdog. And sometimes you can become a very bitter person supporting the underdog because you cease to support the victimizer, right? And the victimizer is just as much out of their right mind as anyone else. If I'm a victim or a victimizer of a situation, I'm insane, I'm depressed, right? I don't like you, so I'll victimize you. I'm not happy. I don't like myself because I see myself as a victim. I've been raped. Yeah, people get raped. It's horrific, right? And in yoga, they talk about the dis-ease and then the dis-ease of the dis-ease, right? So there's dis-ease when you're raped. There's dis-ease when you're cheated. And then there's in that moment, right? You go through the hell of a rape, or you go through the hell of your sovereignty being attacked. And I'm not saying that that's lovely at all. It's horrible. But the dark night of the soul is the healing of the dis-ease of the dis-ease, right? The rape is over, let's say, or you've gotten away from the abusive husband, or you've gotten away from the abusive wife. And then you have to get over the bitterness that traps you in your depression, that the world is doomed, that everyone is, you know, what can I do to escape this? And you have to, that is where you start to, that's where the rubber meets the road of healing. I've met some very wounded healers, right? And I think that a huge percentage of people working in the healing profession do more harm than good. And I mean that. I don't mean that as an attack on them. I'm just saying, like, they're so caught up in their delusional understanding of what healing is, and justified in their wrath and their attack of anyone that questions their insanity. But real healing comes down to looking at the fear that binds us to an identity that wants to be victimized or wants to victimize. And I don't mean like because a woman wears a short skirt, she wants to be raped, right? That would be horrific to make such a conclusion. And like those people that say, oh, she wore a short skirt, she had it coming, you know, that's insanity, right? But what I mean is like, there comes a point with the pain body where the mind says, I could got to do everything that's practical to hold up this twisted mind that's abused me to the light of justice, right? That's what, however I do it. But that I can do, that's something I have to do, or I can't do because it's too much, it's too painful, right? And you find 1% of rape victims get a prosecution. So like I said, the world is insane, you know, horrible things happen and people get away with it. But in terms of healing depression, you can't fix that part of the world. I mean, you can become a political activist, you can go to court, you can fix it to a degree. And I'm not, this is not a video about handling that stuff. That's a decision you have to make, and you have to feel whatever works with your conscience. You know, do I walk away from this abuse or do I hold it accountable? Because if you're going to hold it accountable, go to the courts and so forth, you may have to, you know, relive this horrific story that you want to put behind you, and that can be very, very challenging to healing, right? So I don't judge people that make whichever decision there. It's a very difficult one to make. But I'm talking about like, I'm a victim of the world I see. That is the voice of depression. Even the victimizer believes that. Like Hitler killed millions of people because he thought he was a victim of the Jews. They were the scapegoat, and the homosexuals and the gypsies and the British imperialism, right? And so he came in, although he wanted to partner with the Brits. He wanted to be the big, powerful Aryan bully, right? Iran and Ireland both come from the word Aryan, right? So we stick together in whatever in-group we want, right? But apocalypse means the death of the in-group, the transcendence of that, the uncovering of the illusion of our differences to find our sameness. And our sameness is beyond the masks of the attacker and the defender, is innocence and love and healing. And so to handle depression, that intellectually has to start to stalk you. The idea that everyone is innocent in the eyes of your healed perception, and worthy of love and loving, and they're just wounded. And to see beyond their wounds is to heal yourself of your own. And to see beyond your own wounds is to heal yourself of depression. So this is the basic metaphysics that you have to start to intellectually circle round and question the thoughts that are attacking and defending. Doesn't mean you don't take the person who raped you to court. Doesn't mean that you don't take the person that abused your sovereignty to court. But it means that you do that without vengeance. Like you know, like there's a story in the samurai tradition where a man's brother is killed. And by the laws of the code of conduct of the samurai, as a samurai, his job was to take, you know, vengeance on the death of his brother. And this is like the samurai code. I'm not saying you should do this. This has got nothing to do with enlightened thinking. It's a metaphor. But he goes to the house of the samurai that's killed his brother. And he walks up to him, and, you know, the guy knows that he's come to kill him. And he's like, he knows the samurai code. I don't think this guy is a samurai, or if he is, he knows how to play the games with the code, right? And he spits in the man's face, right? This man has killed his brother, and the man has come to kill him. But he is not there to break, you know, this man is a man that lives by the code of conduct of the samurai, and he's doing this killing of the man that killed his brother to honor the code. But the moment that he gets spat at in the face, he's up against this immense conundrum because he's suddenly going to kill him out of anger. How dare he spit in this man's face? How dare he do that, right? So the man who's been spat at puts his sword back in the sheath and walks away. So can you come to the problem you face and handle it with wisdom without becoming bound up in the bitterness that judges those people or those situations that make you a victim of the world you see? Now, you are a victim when someone abuses you, like that's true. But then are you going to get trapped in the wasteland of the disease of the disease, right? That I've been victimized and I'm a permanent professional victim in my mind, in my system of thinking now. And that's a really tough call because, a loving friend will say that, a superficial friend, oh, I feel your pain, right? But the deep friend will say that first and then say, yeah, but you're bigger than this. You're not the sum total of the stories that have happened to you. You're the sum total of how you choose to see beyond them. So you rise and you shine. You don't fall and stay fallen because someone takes you out. And in fact, when you start to see the wisdom of this, you were never lost. You were never debilitated. Yes, you were in the stories of the world, but if you use those stories as a vehicle to getting to know your equanimity beyond the ups and downs of the thought system of ego, beyond the ups and downs of the emotional repertoire that you were born with, that we're all born with, then you can handle depression as a thing. Like it's the depression. There's like a cloud in the sky. You're this boundless firmament. You're not the depression. And then the cloud of depression can move over you and you can do whatever practical steps, walking, swimming, taking an ice bath, fasting, eating the right diet that support that. But at the deepest level, you're saying, I am not this wounded story. And the people that have attacked me, if I give into bitterness and hate towards them in my mind, then I'm the loser, no one else. And if I don't, then everyone wins.